today's story with a similar plot. Enjoy it. Stacy Lipton, smiling, drove her BMW on the highway in Atlanta. She anticipated having to return home a bit later than planned, but she attributed it to the well-known traffic jams in the city. The delay in departure seemed like wasted time to her, blaming it on the Atlanta traffic. Nick, almost 10 years younger than Stacy, was not only a wonderful lover but also an excellent conversationalist. His attractiveness and ability to quickly recover after intimate encounters were evident. As she drove away from the city, Stacy's thoughts gradually drifted away from Nick. Despite his attractiveness, there were places reserved in her heart for Jonathan and Casey, her daughter. Stacy looked forward to spending time with them, especially now that her satisfaction was complete. She was aware of her moods and planned to be patient and loving towards Jonathan upon returning home. Her smile showed that she felt like she had the best of both worlds. Upon arriving home, Stacy noticed her husband's pickup truck was missing from the garage, which struck her as strange and unexpected. This caused a shift in her mood. She hoped Jonathan would return home to greet her after her long trip. However, the house was empty. While pondering where Jonathan and Casey might be, Stacy suddenly remembered that her phone had been turned off since dinner. Her thoughts were distracted, and she didn't even notice that no one had called her. She decided to turn on her phone, returning to reality once again. Jonathan congratulated himself once again on having succeeded in executing a simple but brilliant plan to please and surprise his wife. He had known about her planned conference in Atlanta for months. Stacy visited them twice a year. As fate would have it, this conference fell on his 20th wedding anniversary. A few weeks earlier, Jonathan had been approached about building a large vacation home for a family in Atlanta. Once the business portion of the meeting was completed, and Jonathan felt comfortable with the client, Boyd Drake, he expressed an idea that had only recently formed in his head. "Boyd, on the 10th of next month, our anniversary, my wife will be attending a conference in downtown Atlanta. I would like to surprise her and her colleague with a nice dinner at a good restaurant somewhere near her hotel. To top it off, I bought a pearl necklace that I would like to present to her at the table when she eats dinner. My daughter should organize this for you," Boyd said. "She's in college now and knows all the good places in the city. She could see to it that the necklace ends up in your wife's hands. It sounds like you're planning on being lucky when your wife comes home. Why don't you just go to Atlanta with her and deliver yourself? I've proposed in the past, but Stacy insists she's too busy to spend time with me. She will have a late dinner and return to the hotel as soon as possible to rest. The next day I have obligations here, and to travel this far only to be ignored seems a little stupid," Jonathan reasoned. "I have another idea," Jonathan added. "Suppose I buy your daughter and her friend dinner if she agrees to sit at the table next to Stacy, and send me a live video on Facebook. I'd love to see Stacy's surprised look when she opens the necklace box. I'll give you my daughter's number and you can call or text her to arrange everything," Boyd replied. "I'm sure she'll be happy to help get this done." Jonathan had several pizzas delivered to his home for a party he was throwing to celebrate his 20th anniversary. He invited his parents, Stacy's parents, his brother and sister-in-law, and Stacy's younger divorced sister. They all expected to see Stacy in real time when he surprised her with an anniversary gift. Jonathan's 16-year-old daughter, Casey, was also there with several of her friends. Jonathan had everything set up so they could watch the video on the big screen TV. Boyd's daughter will sit as close to Stacy as she can without arousing her suspicions. She will send videos to me via Facebook Live. She paid the waiter to deliver the wrapped gift after Stacy and her coworkers who ordered food. We'll see Stacy's reaction in real time. This will be the best anniversary ever considering we are so far apart, Jonathan explained with a happy smile. I set everything up so that no sound will be transmitted from our side, so feel free to make comments, including what a great idea I had. Who is this guy with his mother? Casey asked as Stacy came into view holding hands with a handsome young man. Didn't you say she would be with Sue? I don't know who he is, Jonathan admitted. He seems to be a pretty close friend. Stacy's father simply made a harumph sound and frowned at Jonathan's statement as the couple took their seats. Everyone gathered around Jonathan's TV could easily hear the conversation. It's very nice that your husband paid for our dinner this evening, the unknown man remarked with a grin. I will do my best to make this anniversary unforgettable. At least for you, it will be even better than your honeymoon. Then you better order a steak, Stacy replied with a grin. You will need strength. My honeymoon was epic. Is it true? The man asked. Did you have a lover then, or did your husband actually manage to ring the chimes? Jonathan did a great job. Thanks for asking, Stacy replied. You're the only lover I've had in the last 20 years, not counting Jonathan, of course. Luckily for me, he started to slow down. The good news is this: you'll have a much better 20th anniversary tonight than most women. I'll take care of it. Maybe we've seen enough, Sister Stacy suggested nervously. This is not entirely fair. Stacy has no idea what we're watching or listening to. Why don't you turn it off, Jonathan? We don't want to miss Stacy's reaction when she receives her necklace, do we? Asked the determined but very red-faced Jonathan. Let's watch this train wreck for a little while longer, Jonathan insisted. While the couple was ordering, everyone heard Stacy call her companion Nick. As the waiter left with the menu, another waiter appeared with a nicely wrapped package. Look, Jonathan must have delivered me a wedding anniversary gift, Stacy exclaimed in delight, tearing open the packaging. Isn't she beautiful? Stacy asked, looking at the string of pearls. Could you fasten it on me? Certainly, just lean towards me, Nick said, carefully fastening the necklace. Having completed his task, he quickly ran his hands over Stacy's chest. Your husband is so romantic. You're lucky to have such a handsome man, remarked an elderly woman sitting at the next table. True on both counts, Nick agreed with a smile. She has a romantic husband and a handsome boyfriend. Stacy glared at Nick, but the older woman simply laughed at his comment. I gave you a pearl necklace last night, which I think looks much better on you than this, Nick joked, leaning down and kissing Stacy on the lips. That's the difference between a husband and a lover, Stacy said with a sexy grin. Husbands give us jewelry and lovers give us climaxes. Sorry, but I can't do it anymore, the beautiful red-haired girl, who must have been Boyd's daughter, whispered as she turned off her phone. I should have stopped earlier, but I was so stunned that I went into shock. I'm so sorry it turned out this way. I will definitely erase everything from my phone. I have to go. The TV turned off and everyone sat in stunned silence. One of Casey's friends was the first to speak. It's already late. We'd better leave. See you tomorrow at school if I even go, Casey replied with tears in her eyes. Dad, is it okay if I go home to my friends? I feel like I need to be with them now. Of course, honey. I understand. We'll talk tomorrow. Drive carefully, girls, Jonathan said, his throat practically whispering due to how dry it was. I don't know what to say, Stacy's mother began. I think we got the Jonathan impression about what was happening. Stacy loves you, Jonathan, and is ready to give her life for Casey. Don't do anything rash. Jonathan's other guests mostly repeated these words as they quietly discussed the situation. After a few more minutes of calm discussion, Jonathan made his decision. I have something to think about. Everyone, please find a way out yourself and give me some time to be alone and think about my options. When everyone had left, Jonathan took out his suitcase and began to pack his things. Stacy was surprised by the number of messages she'd received and calls she'd missed since she'd turned off her phone the previous evening. As she looked through the messages, her heart sank. Her sister and mother demanded to know who Nick was and why she was so friendly with him. They insisted that she had broken Jonathan's heart, and Casey was also very upset. Her mother and sister sent her at least a dozen messages each. Stacy checked her messages to see if she had anything from Jonathan, and found that she didn't. How did her family find out about Nick, and how much do they really know? Where are Jonathan and Casey? How can she get out of the hole she finds herself in? She needed to find out what exactly Jonathan knew and also what he simply suspected. Mother, it's me. I forgot I turned off my phone last night. Stacy began as calmly as she could. I see you tried to call me. Is there anything, Jonathan? Only if you think the loss of your husband, the alienation and embarrassment of your daughter, the disgrace of your parents, and the behavior of an inveterate can be considered Jonathan ing. I'm guessing it doesn't bother you too much. Otherwise you wouldn't be enjoying a damn pearl necklace from your boyfriend, her mother ranted. Jonathan gave me a string of pearls for our anniversary, Stacy countered. Why should this upset you? Your father and I have seen enough old adult films to understand what your boyfriend meant when he said you were wearing his pearl necklace, Stacy's not so straightforward mother said. Mother, what makes you think I would do something like that? Why do you think I have a boyfriend? Stacy asked, fair, tying a knot in her gut. Don't play games with me. I am not stupid, her mother growled. Jonathan invited us to watch you open his 20th anniversary present at the restaurant. He booked a table for you and your colleague. I think her name was Sue. We have seen this whole vile story. Your husband treats you like a queen and you don't respect him. Husbands give jewelry and lovers give climaxes, I think you said. Did you hear me say that? Asked to shock Stacy. How is this possible? Jonathan asked some friend's daughter to do some sort of live broadcast from her phone. He wanted us to see how happy you would be with his gift, then we were all going to call and congratulate you on your anniversary, the mother said sadly. Looks like this might be your last anniversary, at least with Jonathan. Maybe you'll meet your favorite boy again when things calm down. Mother, you know I love Jonathan. That other guy means nothing to me. It was just something to pass the time. These conferences are getting boring, Stacy insisted. Oh, this changes everything, her mother said sarcastically. Jonathan will feel much better knowing that his wife is not and that she was just bored. I assume you left your puzzle at home, Mom. There's no use calling me names. How can I convince Jonathan that he is the only man I love? You didn't even convince me, so I'd say you have some work to do, the mother replied. Watching you with that man is the worst thing I've ever seen. I highly doubt Jonathan found it better. After talking with her mother, Stacy thought about her situation. Her entire family had seen and heard everything she and Nick had discussed at dinner the night before. Remembering her conversation with Nick, Stacy realized how bad her situation was. She decided to call Casey. Casey, where are you? Stacy asked when Casey answered her call. I'm with Morgan. She's trying to consult me because my family has broken up, Stacy's daughter replied. We are not breaking up. Please come home and we can talk about this. Where is your father? Stacy asked uncertainly. He moved to a cottage on the lake, Casey answered. I don't think he wants to see you. He was so happy last night when he invited everyone to watch you open your gift. You practically tore his heart out when you showed up with your lover instead of Sue. Please come home, Stacy repeated, trying to think of what she could say to Jonathan to get his forgiveness. After finishing her conversation with Casey, Stacy began to look around the house. She noticed that a laptop and several filing cabinets were missing from Jonathan's office. The closet in his bedroom was completely empty as Hubbard's mother's closet. Stacy fought back tears as she wandered aimlessly around the house, noting what items were missing. Jonathan didn't take a single photograph of her presence. This fact seemed especially depressing. Looking for something to take her mind off her crumbling marriage, Stacy began cooking dinner for Casey. By the time Casey walked through the door, she had managed to prepare a small meal. Casey was sullen and only spoke to Stacy when asked a direct question. Even then, Casey kept her answers as short as possible. Stacy admitted to herself that her daughter had good reasons to be angry with her. But she hoped that over time, the house to find Jonathan slumped uncomfortably and passed out on the small couch. Numerous empty beer cans were strewn across the floor. Jonathan, honey, we need to talk. Wake up please, Stacy said. Jonathan slowly opened his eyes and groaned. He gradually stood up and without saying a word, headed to the bathroom. Stacy decided to make some coffee while she waited for her husband to return. A few minutes later, Jonathan, fresh from his shower, returned to the kitchen, and Stacy placed a mug in Jonathan of him. Stacy hoped that Jonathan would initiate the difficult conversation, but that hope soon faded. It was obvious that Jonathan had no intention of starting a conversation. Jonathan, I'm sorry this happened. I love pearls. It was a wonderful gift that I will always cherish. It's a pity that I didn't know that you would pass everything on to your family. It would be great if you told me about this, Stacy said, hoping to open a dialogue. You were all Jonathan could answer as he was infuriated by Stacy's attempt to make him out to be the abuser. Stacy was surprised and hurt by Jonathan's answer. In all their years of marriage he had never spoken to her in a disrespectful manner. This was clear evidence of the pain she had caused him. That won't help, Stacy answered calmly. Tell me, what should I do to fix everything? You are the only man I have ever loved. That hasn't changed. Together we can deal with this. Tell me, what problem exactly do you want to solve? The problem is that I surprised you with an anniversary gift in a nice restaurant, where I booked a table for you and a friend. The problem is that my client's daughter agreed to send a video of your reaction in real time. The problem is that I mistakenly decided that you would appreciate this gift. Explain to me what the problem is so that I understand what you are talking about. Jonathan said calmly. You know what the problem is, Stacy insisted. Last night you saw me and Nick in the restaurant. I know that you have dinner with others from time to time. Why do you think that's the problem? Jonathan asked. You know perfectly well why this is a problem. I told you I was going to dinner with Sue, but I actually went with Nick. You overheard our conversation and found out that we slept together. This is the problem we need to work on, Stacy admitted, blushing. Realizing that in her current situation it would not be possible to go on the offensive, she added, just to be clear, is the problem that I, along with your entire family, overheard your conversation, or is the problem that you had sex with another man? The problem is my behavior, admitted a blushing Stacy. You were just trying to be nice to me on our anniversary. You didn't do anything, Jonathan. Okay, we're making progress. Now tell me, why did you cheat on me behind my back? For how long and with how many men did it happen? Jonathan demanded. Is Casey my biological daughter? Is there any chance that her father was the postman? Jonathan's offensive question provoked Stacy's reaction. There's no need to be vulgar or offensive. Of course, Casey is your daughter. Nick has been my only lover since we started dating. Your comment about how many men I've had, and Casey's father being a mailman, was just cruel. I'm having a hard time understanding your logic, Jonathan countered. You admit that you are a cheater, but you insist that there be a line drawn as to how big of a cheater you are. You want me to be polite and understanding, not to mention gullible, when you tell me that you're one man's lover. Are you proud that you haven't cheated on me that often? By the way, how long have you been sleeping with Pretty Nick and how often? You forgot to mention these important facts when you began to refuse the title of city mayor. This was the third conference we've slept together at, Stacy admitted. Tears in her eyes as she finally began to feel the depth of Jonathan's anger and humiliation. Besides you, he's the only man I've been with since we got married 20 years ago. It will be 2 nights together at each of the 3 conferences, said Jonathan. Have you ever had sex with him anywhere else? No, Stacy stated. This happened a total of 6 times and I deeply regret it. I owe you an apology. Are you saying that a young stud like Nick was only capable of 1 time a night with a beauty like you? Asked Jonathan. He never had you more than once a night. Who cares? Asked a discouraged Stacy. We probably did it 3 times every night. Now for the big question, Jonathan announced. Why did you have sex with another man? Was sex with me so thankless, so mundane, so pathetic that you needed to find a younger, more satisfying lover? Of course not. I was bored and he pursued me tirelessly. I turned out to be weak. It's not about you or our sex life. It's my vanity, maybe a midlife crisis. He doesn't mean anything to me, I swear, Stacy explained. It's clear you had sex with a man who meant nothing to you, Jonathan repeated. Did you have sex with Mr. Jenkins, the guy who lives down the street and wears those ridiculous shirts? Of course not. I barely know him, but I find him repulsive. Stacy continued to defend herself. But you just told me that you sleep with men you don't love and who mean nothing to you. Jenkins fits that description, so why don't you have sex with him? Jonathan pressed. I didn't say that I sleep with every man who means nothing to me, Stacy explained, upset. I slept with Nick because he is handsome, courteous, and successful. He was following me. Do you want to say that you will only cheat on me with handsome, successful men who pursue you? Apart from a few of these guys, are you a faithful wife? Jonathan questioned. If you don't love the men you have sex with, doesn't that mean you don't love me? No, I'm telling you that I made a terrible mistake and it will never happen again, Stacy said with feeling. I love you but not Nick. How do I know this? Jonathan asked quietly. At our wedding and several other times over the years, you promised to be faithful to me. You are a beautiful woman. Handsome, successful men will always pursue you. I can't trust you. I can't even give you the great sex you love so much. Don't ever think like that, Jonathan. I love sex with you. It's special and makes me feel loved, Stacy replied. How did Nick make you feel? Feel that you kept coming back to him? Jonathan asked softly. Dirty used not like a mother or wife. It was the Jonathan S that got me hooked, not love, Stacy admitted, clearly embarrassed. What did you do with him and how? Asked Jonathan quietly. What does it matter? I love only you, Stacy protested, clearly embarrassed. I have something to think about. You stand here and tell me that you love me, not him, but you had dirty sex with him. It's hard for me to accept that you are willing to do much more for a person who means nothing to you than for the person you love, Jonathan reasoned. You haven't told me to please your manhood below the belt for a long time. I wasn't so much against it as I thought you'd lost interest. Yes, what kind of married guy would want to get this from his wife, especially when she gives it out like candy? You told me on our honeymoon that I would be the only man you loved, Jonathan recalled. You and Cute must have had a lot of fun with me. Everything was Jonathan, he never talked about you. I would never allow that, Stacy insisted. You seem to have forgotten that I heard several minutes of your conversation. This insulted me several times and you went along with it. Remember how I slowed down so that he will give you a better 20th anniversary than most wives. You didn't object, did you? Why are we even wasting time here? Jonathan suddenly demanded. You found someone new. I accept it. It looks like you should too. Why pretend that you want to stay married? It's obvious that you didn't enjoy being my wife, and let's not even talk about bad sex. You are beautiful, successful and smart, and I bring nothing to the table. It was only a matter of time before you started looking for something better. Congratulations, you found it. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Jonathan, we can't let this discussion end this badly. We have to discuss everything and find a way back, Stacy tearfully begged. You can ask your lawyer to talk to my lawyer. It's over between us, Stacy. I'm going to divorce you. You left me no choice. That day, Stacy went to work but was found in the break room by an angry Sue. Why did Jonathan ask me about going with you to Atlanta for a conference? You know very well that I stopped writing them after you decided to spend your nights with Romeo from the Chico office. I don't want you to use me as a cover for your infidelity. Did Jonathan call you and what did you tell him? Stacy said dejectedly the truth. I didn't go to the last 2 conferences. I was under the impression that you told him that we were going to share a room and spend time at the conference together. I don't like being used like that. That won't be a problem anymore. Jonathan learned everything on this trip. I think he's going to divorce me, Stacy admitted. What other outcome could you expect? Sue demanded. No decent man could accept this level of disrespect. I was too damn stupid and self-centered to even think about Jonathan finding out about this. Stacy answered frankly. He moved out. Don't you think you made a choice when you slept with that nasty bastard from Chicago? Sue asked a little softer. I'm sorry you lost Jonathan, but I warned you that this would happen if you continued like this. It wasn't me who told him, if that's what you're thinking. I know, Sue. I owe you an apology. I abused your friendship. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. I don't deserve a man like Jonathan. After finding out that Stacy was cheating on him, Jonathan took the day off from work. He was determined to move all his belongings to the lake house before Stacy returned home. He didn't want to listen to her reasons and excuses for cheating. He hated the thought of life without Stacy, but he knew he could never forgive her callous disregard for his feelings nor her ambivalence about loyalty and respect. Her unexpected visit the next morning simply revealed a huge emotional chasm dividing them. She didn't say anything that could help him forgive her betrayal. He made an appointment with a lawyer for the next day. The next day he was preparing to leave the office for a meeting with a divorce lawyer when he received a new email. It was from Stacy. He wondered if he should read it or just delete it. After internal discussion, he opened the letter. In her typical fashion, Stacy tackled the problem head-on. He felt nothing but despair when he read her message. Jonathan, I know I really screwed up this time. I was so stupid that I thought you would never know and my actions would never hurt you. I was Jonathan. Lying and cheating destroy marriages even if one partner doesn't know what's happening. You deserve so much more. I have never wanted anything in my life as much as I want you to forgive me, but I will not challenge any of your actions regarding our marriage. I have lost my right to participate in your decisions. I love you and wish you all the best. You are a wonderful man, husband and father. This is all entirely on my conscience. I accept this truth, although I feel bad that I did this to us. Jonathan fought back tears as he read Stacy's confession and her plea for forgiveness. It was like her to accept blame for her actions when she had time to think about the situation. She was a Jonathan woman requires the best from both others and herself. He felt empty and saw no reason to answer the letter. He had nothing more to say. After that morning when Stacy arrived at Jonathan's lake house, her only source of information about Jonathan was Casey. On Friday afternoon, Casey called Stacy to say she was going to her dad's cabin for the weekend. Jonathan would bring her home on Sunday evening. Stacy realized that this was how her life would continue. She spent a miserable weekend thinking about how much she had screwed up her life. She had no idea how to correct her mistake, or even if it was possible to correct it. Had she completely ruined her once happy marriage? Returning home on Sunday evening, Casey looked rather gloomy. Dad decided to divorce you. He cannot live with someone who has lost all respect for him. I saw him cry several times this weekend. I've never seen this before in my entire life. Do you have any idea how much you offended him? Your boyfriend is probably a lot better than your dad, Casey said. He's not my boyfriend and he's no match for your father, Stacy replied, shocked. It was a huge mistake and I deeply regret it. Your father is the best man I have ever known. Forgive both Dad and me for being skeptical, Casey replied. This isn't the first time you've slept with this bastard, right? You've been deceiving us for years, haven't you? Casey asked angrily. Stacy realized it was time to stop lying to her family. I slept with him at 2 conferences before this last one. It was Jonathan and I apologize, Stacy confessed. Was it Jonathan? That's putting it mildly, don't you think, Mom? Casey objected angrily. You betrayed your father in the worst possible way. Didn't you vow to be faithful when you married him? Did you cross your fingers at that moment, hoping it wouldn't count? I know you're upset with me, but not as much as I am. Your father is a wonderful man and a great father, you know it. What I did doesn't mean I think less of him. I acted very stupidly, Stacy admitted sadly. As you say, Casey started and went to her room. When Stacy returned to work, things turned to normal. She and Casey barely spoke to each other. Her life raft was her job. Everything there remained normal except for Sue's cold attitude towards her. She went to Casey's school events but usually sat alone unless her mom came with her. This was the only time she saw Jonathan. He always sat as far away from her as possible, and the other parents quickly noticed this. It soon became known that they were getting a divorce. Stacy periodically heard fathers, both single and married, make lewd remarks and suggestions. It was quite obvious that the rumor of Stacy's infidelity had spread throughout the community. Jonathan threw himself into his business. This was the silver lining of the whole fiasco. The Jonathan was that Stacy would get half the business. His lawyer suggested several tactics that could reduce Stacy's share of the business, but Jonathan refused to listen. If it weren't for her, we would have nothing to share. I'm not going to deny the facts. Stacy worked next to me and even gave part of her salary to keep us afloat when we first took over the family business, Jonathan insisted.